But it wasn't to bring one, but it was also, get this, none of the offering was kept back. None of the meat was kept back. None of it was said, let's take this part and burn that side. Let's carry this outside. No, the whole thing went up in smoke. Every bit of it. We should offer our lives, all of it. What do you want me to do? You want me to leave my job? You want me to just come to the church and stay with you all the time? What do you mean, all of this? Listen, this is what he means. This is what the Jewish people, this is what religion does. Religion says that I can do whatever I want all week long because I've paid my dues for that hour. That's what religion says. Religion says, as long as I do this, I can live this. As long as I do this, I can do this. It's a trade out in what you're doing. Paul's saying, of His mercy that's new every morning, may we offer our lives completely to Him. And you say, but how do I do that? How do I do that? How do I offer that? If I don't quit my job and come to church, if I don't leave my family, if I don't do that, how do I do that? We've had this saying in the church for a few years, put God first, put God first, put God first. I would challenge that statement, not that I would make it any different, but I would change the way we think about it. Think about doing that first, but then what we think about then, as long as I've done that first, then I can do whatever I want. That's not what God's asking for. God's asking that He is threaded through every part of your life. How you're living at home with your family. How you're an employee on the job. How you're an employer. How you are with your parents. How you are with your grown kids. How you are when you play. How you are when you're alone. God is asking to be threaded through every part of His life, that every part of our life would bring honor to Him. Not that we're in this exchange thing with God. If I give you this, I get to do this. If I give you this, I get to do that. That's religion. That's not a relationship. Next, Paul speaks not just to the sacrifice, but the living. Think about that with me. It almost seems like those two words can't even go together, right? Because living is constant. Sacrifice is dying. Verse 13 says this, for if you live according to the flesh, you will what? Die. But if by the Spirit you put to death the deeds of the body, you will what? Follow Him every day. And we're dying every day to what our desires are, the deeds of our flesh, what we're going through, what we're faced with. And then he uses this word. I'm going to get back to the holy and acceptable. I want to talk about for a moment the spiritual worship that he uses in Romans 12:1 when he says, I appeal to you therefore, brothers, by the mercies of God, to present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable to God, which is your spiritual service or spiritual worship. In the Greek language here, the ideal is this, is reasonable or logical. In view of the truths about our salvation and how it's a gift and what God paid for us, our reasonable worship is that we offer Him our lives. He gave us all. Paul says the reasonable thing to do is to offer Him all. It's reasonable. It's logical. It only makes sense that we would say, God, here, you've done all that. You take my life. You do with it what you want. You do with it as you please. Ooh. Does that make you nervous? It ought to make us nervous. I'll deal with that in just a moment, though, why we don't have to be nervous. But in reality, how do we do this? How do we do this? Look at verse 2. Romans 12, verse 2. He gives us two things. One not to do, and one to do. So we're thinking about, how do I offer myself? How do I reasonably, logically, how do I do that, Chris? It doesn't seem reasonable and logic in a way. How do I just say, okay, God, here's my life, do with it what you want. Here's my life, transform me, conform me to the image of your Son. Here's my life, God, help me to kill the deeds of the flesh today. Here's my life, Lord. Look at what he says. First of all, he says, do not be conformed to this world. Do not be conformed to this world. The ideal is this. Do not allow this world to squeeze you into its mold. Do not allow the world to tell you how to think, how to feel, how to act. Would we just think about some things right now? Hollywood, we can watch sitcom after sitcom after sitcom. You say, oh boy, here goes the preacher going to get legalistic about TV and he going back 100 years ago. Just stay with me. We can watch sitcom after sitcom after sitcom. We can watch movie after movie after movie. We can listen to mainstream music after mainstream music. We can be involved in all. We can spend hours watching Fox News. We can spend hours watching CNN. I don't care what it is. I want you to hear me. When you think about it, all of that, we know this at this point. We might not have known 75 years ago that Hollywood had an agenda. But we know today we're not dumb to this. They have an agenda. Okay? We might not understand that social media has an agenda, but it has an agenda. And as we think about not being conformed to this world, the question is, are we allowing Hollywood, are we allowing mainstream music, are we allowing social media to tell us how to think, act, and feel? If we are, then they are what? They're squeezing us into their mold. And if they're able to squeeze the church into the mold that they want them to be, that's like them, do you realize this right here? Then there is nothing in us that would cause them to want what we have because they already are what we have. Conform. He says, do not conform to the image of this world. Do not let them tell you how to act, think, or feel. And then what does he say next? He says, but be what? Transformed. Thank God for this word. You know why? Because the truth is the world has a head start on us because we're in a fallen nature. We're in this world. We're in this ugliness. And the reality is we need not just a conforming, but we need a transforming. The Greek word is literally, listen this, to change a caterpillar into a butterfly. From a worm that crawls and scares people, I don't know if you're scared of a caterpillar, but you might be, to a butterfly that everybody loves and enjoys. It's a transformation that has to take place. A changing, a drastic changing, and changing in our lives, in our minds. So don't be conformed. Don't allow them to tell you what to think, but to be transformed. And then what did he say? By the what? the renewal of your mind. Now notice what he's done. In verse 1, he said what? Offer your body. In verse 2, he says renew your mind. Do you know why? Because your body follows what your mind thinks. Your body won't offer and be in subjection if your mind is thinking like the world. If your mind is thinking like going after the desires and the lies that Satan would put before